Well, as we said, many questions still remain about the delay in the search and rescue efforts and the captain and crew's actions following the ship's capsize. In trying to better understand the incident, we have Captain John Noble, Director of UK-based Constellation Marine Services, on the phone. Captain, thank you for connecting with us.
Good evening.
Well, rescue divers attempted to enter the ferry earlier today, but to no avail. The delay has left families of the missing frustrated and restless. From your own experience, how do you assess the level of the ongoing efforts?
Well, I think the level of the ongoing efforts are very much controlled by the conditions at the site. The first thing is the current, and that is quite strong. So free diving in the water is very difficult. The second thing is the sea temperature, and the third thing is the weather, the wind, which creates waves which make it virtually impossible to get in the water. So all these divers sitting there are actually, they're helpless. They would dearly, I'm quite sure, love to get in the water and get on with it, but we have a tragic situation which could be made worse by putting divers or other rescuers into the water where they too could suffer.
Well, the vessel is now submerged underwater. How viable is it at this point to increase the chance of finding survivors by pumping air into the sunken ship?
Well, if anyone has reached an air bubble, then the introduction of more air can only help, but whether it would go to the right place remains to be seen. If people are trapped in the water, I'm afraid, and it's dreadful for the families, the chances of survival are practically zero because the sea temperature is so cold at 12 degrees that hypothermia would set in relatively quickly. And I regret to say survival is unlikely.
And Korea's Coast Guard earlier said the sunken vessel, now presumably weighing some 100,000 tons with seawater, is slowly pushing down further into the seabed. Other than attaching airbags to it, what other ways are there to bring the ferry back to the surface?
Well, the natural weight of the ship will force it into the seabed if it is standing to a degree. But airbags would be, they're not of sufficient strength. What they can do, they can bring cranes in. There are cranes available not that far away that could probably lift the underwater weight of the hull is not that much. The 100,000 tons is the figure of the volume of water that they estimate might be there. I think that's a bit high, but the weight to be lifted by cranes is not insurmountable. Another technique that they might want to use is get some barges alongside where they fill them with water, put wires under the ferry, and then pump the ballast out of the barges to try and lift the ferry off the seabed. So it is possible.
And before we let you go, Captain, authorities earlier confirmed that the ferry's young third mate and not the captain of the ship was steering the vessel when it encountered trouble, which is a violation of regulations. Should this be seen as just an act of negligence, or could there be a reasonable explanation for this?
Well, both. The question of the third mate being on the bridge and in control of the ship, that would be quite normal in a normal passage. He would be a watchkeeper and he would know the route. However, if the visibility was poor, or if there was something wrong on the bridge that we haven't heard about yet, then he would be obliged to call the captain to the bridge, and that's where the regulations might kick in, and the captain would then assume control. But we don't yet know enough to determine if the ship was off course and who actually was in charge. This investigation has some way to go yet.
All right, Captain, thank you for sharing your insights with us tonight.